Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the December 2016 Texas Tech University Commencement Exercises. Please join me in thanking the Texas Tech Commencement Band and Dr. Sarah McCoyne, Director of Bands, for their participation in this evening's ceremonies. The Texas Tech Commencement Band is provided for today's exercises through the auspices of the Office of the President of Texas Tech University. Now entering the United Supermarkets Arena, the Mace of Texas Tech, the symbol of the university. The mace bearer is Dr. David C. Ivey, Professor of Marriage and Family Therapy, College of Human Sciences. Following the mace is the faculty banner. The banner bearer is Professor Annie Chalix Boyle, Assistant Professor of Music, J.T. and Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the faculty of Texas Tech University, led by University Marshals Damian Pantoja and Dr. Mark Moore. Now entering the United Supermarkets Arena, the stage party, led by University Marshals Laura Hines, Chair of the Convocations Committee, and Matthew Schleif, Chair-elect of the Convocations Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and welcome the December 2016 Graduate School class of Texas Tech University, led by University Marshals Shelley Barba, Dr. Mary Murimi, Ian Barba, and Lynn Whitfield. Entering the United Supermarkets arena, the Graduate School banner. The banner bearer is Ashley Marie Gonzalez.
please rise and join us in singing the national anthem, played by the Commencement Orchestra, conducted by Dr. Sarah McGoyne, and sung by Mrs. Michaela Harden, graduating with a Bachelor's of Music.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. I am Lawrence Skuvanek, President of Texas Tech University, and it is my pleasure to welcome each of you to this, the December 2016 commencement of the Graduate School. I would like to introduce the members of the platform party. Please hold your applause until all have been introduced. Mrs. Debbie Monford, member of the Board of Regents. Mr. John T. Monford, President and Chief Executive Officer, JTM Consulting. Mr. Robert Duncan, Chancellor of the Texas Tech University System. Dr. Michael Gallion, Interim Provost and Senior Vice President. Dr. Gene Wild, Faculty Senate President. Ms. Elizabeth Polk, Staff Senate President. Mr. Benjamin Sharp, President of the Student Government Association. Mr. Thad Brock, Student Government Association Chief of Staff. Ms. Jessica Stepp, Representative of the Graduate Student Advisory Council. Dr. Comfort Pratt, Teaching Academy Representative. Dr. David Ness, Horn Professor Representative. Dr. David Durfort, Associate Dean of the Graduate School. Dr. Steve Fraze, Interim Dean of the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources. Mr. Jim Williamson, Dean of the College of Architecture. Dr. Brent Lindquist, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Paul Goebel, Interim Dean of the Rawls College of Business Administration. Dr. Nurkan Bach, Senior Associate Academic Dean of the Edward E. Whitaker Jr. College of Engineering. Dr. Scott Ridley, Dean of the College of Education. Dr. Lynn Huffman, Senior Associate Dean, College of Human Sciences. Dr. David Perlmutter, Dean of the College of Media and Communication. Mr. Andrew Martin, Senior Associate Dean of the J.T. and Margaret Talcotton College of Visual and Performing Arts. Dr. Juan Munoz, Senior Vice President for Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Community Engagement and Vice Provost. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Debbie Monford, member of the Board of Regents, who will give the welcome on behalf of the Regents.
Well, members of the Graduate School of 2016, parents, spouses, extended family, and special friends, it is my honor as a member and on behalf of the Board of Regents of the Texas Tech University System to welcome all of you We extend our sincere congratulations to each graduate on this occasion, marking a significant lifetime achievement as you receive a postgraduate degree from Texas Tech University. This achievement places you in a very select percentage of your fellow Americans and is an accomplishment that will serve you well. You have demonstrated perseverance, discipline, and a keen understanding of the importance of furthering your education. You are now equipped with multiple degrees that will, hopefully, pave the way for your future success in whatever field, venture, or endeavor you pursue. And a note of thanks to the parents, spouses, and loved ones and friends. You've helped and support and guide these graduates, and they have most certainly needed you along this journey. You've made a wise decision in the investment in the state and our nation's future. Our graduates traverse the realm of global experiences. Tech has produced great leaders in business, industry, law, medicine, research, government, engineering, technology, and the arts in virtually every field. They've served as governors, senators, and in Congress. Our graduates have pioneered as astronauts in outer space. Many have served in our nation's military, and many have given their lives in service to our country. You now possess the tools necessary for success, and we hope you will continue to have a passion for learning. The world today presents an array of lofty challenges, and we are counting on you to respond and to help resolve these challenges, pursue your dreams, and make lasting contributions for a better world. We're also counting on you to remain a loyal part of the Texas Tech family and its legacy. A great university is measured in large part by its students, most certainly its faculty, and the loyalty and support of its graduates. So on behalf of the Board of Regents, we wish you success, and again, a well-earned congratulations. This day marks for you, your family, and supporters a major lifetime achievement.
Thank you, Regent Montfort. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Robert Duncan, Chancellor of the Texas Tech University System.
Thank you, Dr. Skuvenik. Congratulations to each and every one of you. I'd like to begin tonight and take a moment to recognize today's commencement speaker, John T. Montfort, the very first Chancellor of the Texas Tech University System. Many of you may not have been around, or maybe you were, 20 years ago when the Board of Regents created the Texas Tech University System. Prior to that time, we were at one university and a health science center with a medical school and a nursing school. Since the Board of Regents created the system in 1996, we now have two comprehensive health-related institutions, two medical schools, one on the border, one here, campuses in Amarillo, Abilene, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, and El Paso, with a full four-year medical school there. And we have a presence on more than 12 campuses throughout the western part of the state as a system. We now have a budget of about $2 billion per year, and the system has made a major difference in our ability to grow because of philanthropy. $2 billion has been raised to support faculty, students, and infrastructure for the Texas Tech University system because of the creation of the system. And the reason I bring that is our 20th anniversary ends this month. And John T. Montfort was the very first person to come in here, and he actually invented what we had. He made us believe in ourselves. He came in here in the only campaign that we had ever had at Texas Tech University for philanthropy was like a $60 million campaign. John T. came in and said, we're going to raise $500 million, $500 million. And everybody thought, we can't do that. Well, guess what? John T. and his team and the alumni of this university raised $500 million, $500 million. And what that did for this system was made us believe in ourselves. And that's the first thing for success. All of us, before we can be successful, we have to do that. We have to believe in ourselves. Each and every one of you are achieving a graduate degree today, and you couldn't do that without the confidence that you've gained from your experiences here at Texas Tech, your undergraduate career, and the faculty who have mentored you here today for your degree. I want to pay tribute to one of our heroes today, Major Troy Gilbert. Major Gilbert graduated from Texas Tech in 1983. You have probably seen the national news coverage over the past several months about Major Gilbert. On November 27, 2006, Major Gilbert and his wingmen were flying their F-16s over Iraq when they received the call that a helicopter had been shot down nearby. Low on fuel, they pursued protection of the helicopter. Enemy insurgents were moving in on the helicopter crew, and they were attacking soldiers on the ground with great force. Our service members were in trouble. Gilbert and his wingmen had to act strategically and fast. To avoid civilian casualties, Major Gilbert chose to fly at a low level to use his Gatling guns rather than risk civilian casualties with larger munitions. The first pass, he destroyed one truck and dispersed the insurgents. He then circled back for another pass at even a lower altitude. He continued firing on the enemy as his F-16 impacted the ground. Tragically, Major Gilbert died instantly as a result of that heroic action. Al-Qaeda insurgents took his body, and for 10 years, his family was left at home, waiting for the return of a husband, father, son, brother, and Red Raider. Finally, in October of this year, and you may have seen this on the news, Major Gilbert came home. His remains were returned. On Monday, December the 19th, Major Gilbert will be buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. Major Gilbert has been described by fellow service members as an illustration of greatness and a true demonstration of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all he did. There are husbands, wives, brothers, and sisters who are home today with their families because of the heroic actions and the selfless actions of Major Gilbert. His amazing display of bravery and tenacity in the face of grave danger saved many others, even if it meant he lost his life. I'm unbelievably proud to say that this fine man of honor was a Red Raider alumnus. You know, Red Raiders are extraordinary people and go on to do the extraordinary things. I hope you'll see your Texas Tech degree as a badge as the badge of honor that it is. Today, you officially become a piece of our history of excellence and honor. My wish for you is that you, like Major Gilbert and all Red Raiders who came before you, chase your dreams and achieve them. I urge you to act with integrity, humility, and selflessness in all you do. Your time here prepared you for excellence and to make a difference. Now it's the time for you to go out and make it happen. From here it's possible. You need only to strive for honor. God bless you, your families, and Texas Tech University.
Thank you, Chancellor Duncan. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's commencement speaker. John T. Monford, as the Chancellor noted, is a former member of the Texas Senate and was the first Chancellor of the Texas Tech University system upon its establishment 20 years ago. Under his leadership, the system embarked on a capital campaign that ultimately generated $500 million for the system and its component institutions. Mr. Monford and his wife, Regent Debbie Monford, have made an indelible mark on Texas Tech University. As Mr. Monford began his tenure as chancellor, the Monfords established and made significant personal contributions to a scholarship program in political science and the campus beautification program. At the conclusion of his tenure as chancellor, they created and contributed to other scholarship opportunities. When Mrs. Montford was appointed to the Board of Regents, the Montfords continued their support with a significant contribution to the newly formed Regents Scholarship Fund, which benefits students at all component institutions. Through these examples of their substantive generosity to the Texas Tech University system, they are role models of how success, support, and commitment can change a university. Prior to serving as chancellor, Mr. Montford was a member of the Texas Senate for 13 years, where he chaired the Senate State Affairs Committee and Senate Finance Committee and was president pro temp. Mr. Montford is also a past senior vice president for SBC Communications, and following SBC's merger with AT&T, was named president of AT&T Services for the Western region of the United States. An active member of the San Antonio community, Mr. Montford has served on the boards of numerous charitable and nonprofit organizations. Recently, he co-authored a book entitled Board Games: Straight Talk for New Directors and Good Governance, a bestseller in the corporate governance category by Amazon. Mr. Montford is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps and former district attorney of Lubbock County. We are proud to welcome him back to Texas Tech for this graduation ceremony.
Good evening, members of the Board of Regents, particularly Regent Montford, Chancellor Duncan, President Chauvenac, distinguished faculty members, family members, and the all-important distinguished candidates for advanced degrees for Texas Tech University. Well, I have bad news and good news. The bad news is, when I was getting out of my car, the West Texas wind blew my speech away. The good news is I have another copy. Now I know what you're thinking. I have the good news and bad news mixed up. Aha. You know, it is daunting to stand before a class of graduates, candidates for advanced degrees. It's an extremely serious moment in my career, and I know it is likewise in yours. I have been so impressed with the agility of graduate students, and this was again pointed out to me last week. Several authors were invited to a graduate symposium, and I was privileged, being a recent late life author of a corporate book. I was privileged to receive an invitation, and I was there with some pretty big heavyweights, some Pulitzer Prize winners. So we had an all-day symposium. We were scheduled to speak chronologically as time progressed. So I came in late, and I sat at the back of the room, and there was a young lady there who was in attendance, a graduate student. So I quietly crept in, and I said, "How's the conference going?" She said, "It is going great. We've had some incredible speakers." I said, "Is that right?" And she said, "Yeah, I don't know much about this next guy. I hear he's kind of boring, though." And she looked at me and she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm the next speaker." And I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I am out of here." Oh, I thought that was really agile. Well, I promised you, having sat through many graduations myself and having participated in many graduations, I was thinking about with a group of officer candidates I went through a commencement one time with, and we had all been commissioned. We were about to go on active duty, and I kept looking at this gray-headed guy up there speaking, and I thought to myself, I wish you would hurry up so I could get my degree and get out of here. So I am sort of sympathetic with that, although I'm the gray-headed guy this time. So, realizing that this speech is the only thing standing in the way of you receiving an advanced degree. I will be brief and to the point, but I do have a couple of charges I hope you will take to heart, because most of the time, the only thing I remember about commencements are the stories that the commencement speakers tell. But I do have a couple of charges that I think will be important to you, and I hope you will take seriously for the rest of your careers. The first charge is to have a passion for whatever you decide to do. You may change careers many times, but when you finally decide what you want to do, then give it all you got. Give it 100%. The successful people I know have an intense passion for what they do. And being successful in life is not necessarily making a lot of money. Success is rising to the top of your profession, your chosen profession, ethically and honestly, and gaining the respect of others and gaining the respect of your peers. There are many Texas Tech graduates that have set the highest possible levels for having a passion for what they did or what they do. Please allow me to highlight three of them, three outstanding, extraordinary examples. George O'Brien attended Texas Tech and graduated in 1950 with a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Science in Geology. He was commissioned upon graduation as a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps and was sent to Korea during the early 1950s during that Korean War conflict. As an officer of Marines, on October 27, 1952, Lieutenant O'Brien led a counterattack at a location called the Hook, near the 38th parallel, which divides North and South Korea. Earlier, the enemy had overtaken and overrun that location, and the security of the U.S. forces was threatened. Despite being wounded, Lieutenant O'Brien led his troops in a fearless assault involving hand-to-hand combat, and his men retook this hill as a vital tactical position. For 4 hours, George fought, was wounded, hand-to-hand combat, made sure all of his men who were wounded were evacuated, and then secured the position, all during this time refusing medical attention for his own wounds. He survived, though his company suffered many casualties. Exactly 1 year later, on October 27, 1953, President Dwight David Eisenhower awarded George O'Brien, a Texas Tech graduate, the Congressional Medal of Honor, our nation's highest award for valor and heroism. George O'Brien was a leader who had a job to do in service to his country, and he had a passion to complete his mission against almost insurmountable odds. George O'Brien is a genuine American hero. But you know, just like you, many years ago, George O'Brien sat somewhere on this campus in a cap and gown, and just like you, got his degree. Colonel Rick Douglas' husband was a distinguished 1980 graduate of Texas Tech. He got his commission through the Air Force ROTC and majored in mechanical engineering. I'm sure you have read that on February 1st, 2003, while in command of the Space Shuttle Columbia, Colonel Husband perished when the spacecraft he commanded, apparently because of defective and damaged heat shield tiles, disintegrated upon re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Prior to his heroic death, Rick Husband had flown some 3,800 hours as an Air Force test pilot in some 40 different types of aircraft. In 1999, he had completed a multiple orbit mission in the Space Shuttle mission STS-99. his last mission in 2003, Colonel Husband's crew completed some 80 research experiments benefiting science, technology, and medicine before they perished. His co-pilot was Commander Willie McCool, the son of Professor Barry McCool, who was a professor here at Tech. For those of us fortunate to have known Rick as well as Willie, Rick was an avid Red Raider. He loved flying. He had a hugely successful career as an aviator. The fine citizens of Amarillo named their airport in honor of Rick Husband. Not too many years ago, just like you, he sat here on this campus in his cap and gown. His memory lives on. He had a passion for what he did. And just last week in New York City, the Metropolitan Opera honored an iconic mezzo-soprano for her unprecedented 25th anniversary of performing at New York's Metropolitan Opera. This renowned international star has received just about every music honor possible. According to the New York Times, and I quote, "She is an eloquent interpreter of a large repertoire of German classical to contemporary American music." This world-class star is Susan Graham from Midland, Texas, a 1983 graduate of Texas Tech and a 1985 recipient of a master's degree from Texas Tech University. Susan developed and perfected her singing talents here under the expert tutelage of great professors like Jack Gillis in the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Susan Graham has a passion for what she does, and she does it well: opera. Her operatic roles span 4 centuries of great composers. She has won awards ranging from Grammys to the French Legion of Honor for her mastery of French composition. Just like you, several years ago, Susan was on this campus in her cap and gown, receiving 2 diplomas. My second charge to you is to give back. Share your success with your community, your school, your country, and your family. There's a real joy of giving back if you extend the hand of opportunity to those who follow you so that they may have the same opportunities you have had to be successful. As one who has had the benefit, or some say misfortune, of so many careers, 3 groups of people stand out in my personal psyche for admiration. Those who mentored and helped me attain positions in life one would never have dreamed of achieving, just like those faculty members have mentored you and have helped you and will help you achieve great positions in life. Those entrepreneurs who built a successful business with their own ingenuity in our system of free enterprise economy. And those community volunteers who helped raise our children through their own volunteerism and gave so unselfishly of their time. The countless, but not faceless, number of volunteers that really make America tick. These are the people that staff the polls, coach our kids' football teams, Little League, soccer, run Brownie and Cub Scout troops, choir, the PTA, the room mothers, the school board members, the food bank volunteers, the hospice volunteers, United Way volunteers, the long list of your fellow Americans who are the fabric of what makes our country so great. These people are the pillars of inspiration. They're not bigwigs, they're not high profile, they're not media stars or political figures. They're just good people, good neighbors, and good friends. Some of you will become public servants with your careers in government or the military or politics. Some of you will hold elective office. Some of you will be doctors, lawyers, educators, professors, business leaders, entrepreneurs. Your degrees will enable you to do many, many things. Your legacy at Tech will become increasingly important to you as you continue life's path. Many of your friends you network with here will be lifetime acquaintances. They'll be your campaign chairs and your volunteers. They'll be your business partners, your associates, your fellow engineers, doctors, educators, financial planners, and accountants. They will open doors for you in the future as your business ambitions grow and prosper. So don't forget to give back to Texas Tech University, the institution that brought you together with your classmates and brought you a world-class faculty. And quite importantly on that point, don't forget to thank this great faculty. Here at Tech, that faculty has helped mold you into what you are and what you will become. They have equipped you with the knowledge you will need in today's highly competitive world. So don't forget to give back to your community, your state, your nation, and your university, as well as your family. The joy of helping others will highlight your list of accomplishments. As you graduate and receive an advanced degree here today, you're entering a fast-moving and dangerous world in many respects. Almost daily terrorist attacks, staggering number of mass shootings, the unprecedented killings of police officers, the continuing cauldron of trouble in the Middle East, expanding into Europe and beyond, a global nuclear arsenal with dangerous menaces like North Korea contributing to global instability, a political impeachment crisis in South Korea, a failed coup attempt in Turkey, and on and on and on. But I want to point out you're also entering a time of the most exciting opportunities for success on a scale never before possible. I want you to think about this question just for a minute. Will commencement speakers in 10 or 20 years from now be speaking about you? And in view of all of this, all of the challenges and opportunities, I remain an optimist, and I will tell you why. Several years ago, while serving as the elected district attorney in Lubbock, I decided to run for the Texas Senate. It's a big move, 27 counties, a whole lot of square miles. In fact, campaigning in rural West Texas is a real challenge. The door-to-door campaign has to be done in a pickup. I kept a little black book in my pocket, and I would enter comments about how each person I met I thought was going to vote. On one occasion, I drove up to a rural farmhouse in Lynn County, knocked on the door, introduced myself, and a lady came to the door. She looked rather pleasant. I introduced myself, and I said, "Ma'am, I'm John T. Monfort, and I'm running for the Texas Senate, and I would appreciate your vote." She paused a minute and asked, "Are you the district attorney from Lubbock?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." She paused again and then somewhat loudly proclaimed, "I wouldn't vote for you if you were running unopposed. You sent my brother to the penitentiary for stealing cattle. Get off my property and don't ever come back." I thanked her, got back in my truck, took out my little black book, and being an optimist, I marked that lady as doubtful. Be passionate about what you do and give back. Congratulations on receiving an advanced degree from one of the world's great universities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monfort.
We will now proceed with the conferring of the degrees. All candidates, please rise. Degrees are awarded to those who have successfully completed all requirements established by the university and the faculties of their colleges and departments. President Skubanek, the candidates are recommended to you for conferring of their respective degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents of Texas Tech University, I confer upon each of you the degree for which the Provost has recommended you. Congratulations. Please be seated.
We will now proceed with the recognition of individual graduates. You will note that we have a table located at the west of the stage. A representative of the Alumni Association will be handing each graduate a commemorative lapel pin as a graduation gift from the association.
Thanks, Matt. Dr. Munoz, sorry.
We will begin by recognizing those who have achieved the highest academic designation, a doctorate degree. These graduates have spent years studying, researching, and writing to get to this point, and in that time, they have formed close relationships with their department and faculty members. Today, the graduates will be hooded by their major professors in honor for both parties, signifying the completion of the graduate study at Texas Tech.
The banner bearer for the graduate school is Dr. Ashley Gonzalez, who is receiving a degree, Doctor of Philosophy in Higher Education. She will be hooded by Dr. Juan Munoz. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Agricultural Communication and Education is Missy Courier, Dr. Missy Courier, hooded by Professor David Dofert. Dr. Wandu Wibo Selassie, hooded by Professor Gad Perry. Dr. Parashit Patkar, hooded by Professor David Ness. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Biology is Dr. Surong Lee, hooded by Professor Matt Olson. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Plant and Soil Science, Dr. Deepika Mishra, hooded by Professors Dick Auld. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Chemistry, Dr. Ishan Guru, hooded by Professor Edward Kitavas. Dr. Alicia Howard, hooded by Professor W. David Ness. Dr. Krista Thomas, hooded by Professor W. David Ness. Dr. Francis Wakesa, hooded by Professor Michael Findlater. Dr. Ray Zhu, hooded by Professor Yehei Mishraf. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Clinical Psychology, Dr. Natalie Scanlon, hooded by Professor Catherine Epkins. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Economics, Dr. Mahmoud Salari, hooded by Professor Robert McComb. Dr. Henan Skulkanye, hooded by Professor Vanessa Chitmi. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in English, Dr. Megan Hansen, hooded by Professor Bruce Clark. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Physics, Dr. James Faulkner, hooded by Professor Seung-Won Lee. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Spanish, Dr. John E. Barron, hooded by Professor John Bosterine. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Technical Communication and Rhetoric, Dr. Jeannie Bennett, hooded by Professor Amy Korber. Dr. Danielle Saad, hooded by Professor Sean Zned. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Zoology, Dr. Juan Pablo Carrera Estupiñan, hooded by Professor Robert Bradley. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Business Administration, Dr. Robert Everett, hooded by Professor Tig Payne. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Counselor Education, Dr. Brian Moffett, hooded by Professor Charles Cruz. Dr. Laura Sparrow, hooded by Professor Charles Cruz. Dr. Catherine Soule. Dr. Tony Walker, hooded by Professor Brett Hendricks. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Dilber Chalabi, hooded by Professor Peggy Price. Dr. Annette Davis-Smith, hooded by Professor Peggy Price. Dr. Donald N. Hume, hooded by Professor Peggy Price. Dr. Faisal Zam, hooded by Professor Peggy Price. Dr. Dana Mayhall, hooded by Professor Peggy Price. Dr. Joy Russell, hooded by Professor Peggy Price. Dr. Ming-Hsu John, hooded by, receiving a Doctor of Philosophy and History, is hooded by Dr. Randy McBee. Dr. Melinda Hammerschmidt is hooded by Professor Heather Greenhay. Dr. Amber Edwards-Wagnon is hooded by Professor Melanie Leslie. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Educational Psychology, Dr. Rang Chang, hooded by Professor Todd D. Little. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Education in Higher Education, Dr. Tia Agan, hooded by Professor Dimitri Jackson Smith. Dr. Matthew Dempsey, hooded by Professor Demetra Jackson Smith. Dr. Julie Covert Murphy, hooded by Professor Demetra Jackson Smith. Dr. Dakota Doman, hooded by Professor Dave Louie. Dr. Kim Shi Hickman, hooded by Professor Dave Louie. Dr. Aaron Reed, hooded by Professor Dave Louie. Dr. Stacy Pfluger, hooded by Professor Stephanie Jones. Dr. John Turner, headed by Professor Stephanie Jones. Dr. Parviz Safadel, hooded by Professor Hansel Burley. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Higher Education, Dr. John Garcia, hooded by Professor Hansel Burley. Dr. Clint D. Havens. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Chemical Engineering, Dr. Mizanur Rahman, hooded by Professor Mark Vaughn. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Civil Engineering, Dr. Rexana Chevid, hooded by Professor Ali Najed. Dr. Kayla Natividad, hooded by Professor H. Scott Norval. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Electrical Engineering, Dr. Scott Clark, hooded by Professor Stephen Bain. Dr. Shelby LaCouture, hooded by Professor Stephen Bain. Dr. Christopher Turner, hooded by Professor Hamid Sarisaraf. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Industrial Engineering, Dr. Katerina Renken, hooded by Professor Mario Baravides. Dr. Kai Oliver Sander, hooded by Professor Milton Smith. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Mechanical Engineering, Dr. Kelsey Meeks, hooded by Professor Michelle Pantoya. Dr. Si-Hang Su, hooded by Professor Michelle Pantoya. Dr. Shi Shanda, hooded by Professor Gordon Christopher. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Petroleum Engineering, Dr. Raed Alohali, hooded by Professor Hussein Ahmadi. Dr. Fahid Siddiqui, hooded by Professor Hussein Ahmadi. Dr. Yue Young, hooded by Professor James Sheng. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Systems and Engineering Management, Dr. Dale Moon, hooded by Professor Janice Toll. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Environmental Toxicology, Dr. Megan Cromie, hooded by Professor Weimin Gao. Dr. Daniel Dawson, hooded by Professor Steve Presley. Dr. Jordan Hunter, hooded by Professor Steve Presley. Dr. Jeremy Eugene Wilkinson, hooded by Professor Greg Mayer. Dr. Evelyn Reategi Sireya, hooded by Professor Todd Anderson. Dr. Ahmed Al-Zuhabi, hooded by Dr. Marshall Watson. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Family and Consumer Science Education, Dr. Jay Killow, hooded by Professor Karen Alexander. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Hospitality Administration, Dr. Ali Al-Almeh, hooded by Professor Shane Blum. Dr. Jeffrey Harper, hooded by Professor Tim Dodd. Dr. Ron Lee, hooded by Professor Jessica Yuan. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Human Development and Family Studies, Dr. Dan Fong, hooded by Professor Michael O'Boyle. Dr. Sadadi Samtani, hooded by Professor Alan Riefman. And Professor Miriam also. Dr. Anuradha Sastry, hooded by Professor Elizabeth Trejo Castillo. Dr. Xu Yuan, hooded by Professor Dana Weiser. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Marriage and Family Therapy, Dr. Heather Austin Robillard, hooded by Professor Sterling Shumway. Dr. Timothy Parker, hooded by Professor Nicole Springer. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Mass Communication, Dr. Priyanka Kandelwal, hooded by Professor Robert Peasley. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Fine Arts, Dr. Lori Calgrove Williams, hooded by Professor Janice Killian. Dr. Aurelia Rocha, hooded by Professor Michael Stone. Dr. Don Allison Schlutz, hooded by Dr. Bill Gelber. Thank you. Dr. Alyssa Stroman, hooded by Professor Christopher Smith. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Musical Arts in Music, Dr. Yue Chain, hooded by Professor William Westney. Dr. Ali Montazeri, hooded by Professor Peter Fisher. Dr. Fagner Rocha, hooded by Professor Ann Chelix Boyle. Receiving the degree of Master of Agribusiness, Jordan Busher. Raina Lewis. Grayson Russell. Receiving the degree of Master of Landscape Architecture, Aura Dominguez. Jinsing Wei. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Agricultural and Applied Economics, Marylou Rilla. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Agricultural Communications, Ashley Hope Hancock. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Agricultural Education, Juan Cantu. Cassie Godwin. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Animal Sciences, Amy Gulick. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Food Science, Brenda Anastroza. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Horticultural Science, John Curlin. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Plant and Soil Science, Jonathan Shockey. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Wildlife, Aquatic, and Wildland Science and Management, Daniel Rawley. Ali Beth Webb. Receiving the degree of Master of Architecture, Marvin Bonilla. Christopher Brennan. Ethan Fleshman. Kyle Anthony Flusci. Adam Jose Gutierrez. John Leal. Jeffrey McAdory. Ahmed Ali. Aldo Morales. Clifton Petty. Eduardo Ponce. Christina Priscilla. Juan Raymond Rubio. Steven Saucedo. Edward Sierna. Jordan Shuey. Zach Sprinkle. Wesley Thomas. Miles Valentine. Brett Wheeler. Talia Weiner Castillo. Sawyer Wilson. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Architecture, Merlin Samuel. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in English, Tracy Gillen. Joshua David Osborne. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in History, Omera Laura. Emily Nelson. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Languages and Cultures, Saad Alami. Ifa Marad. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Mathematics, Patrick O'Connell. Christopher Sauer. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Political Science, Maria Seradina. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Psychology, Sarah Jo David. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Romance Languages, Amy Lynn Tetavid. Receiving the degree of Master of Public Administration, Robert Burleff. Paul Bosaka. Juliana Marin Melo. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Applied Physics, Iman Bu Ali. Alexander Gordienko. Paramita Pansalawata. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Biology, Christopher Dunn. Sarah Mangum. Osuji Ezine. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Chemistry, Megan Gonzalez. Mahesh Takurati. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Forensic Science, Brittany Kuhn. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Geography, Ashley Elizabeth Morris. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Kinesiology, Kelsey Bethke. Ryan DeFranco. Matthew Ham. Jasmine Lamar Bruce. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Mathematics, Mayuran Dinsid. William Tritch. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Sports Management, Jacorian Duffield. Annalika Garcia. Bridget Jenkins. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Statistics, Louis Owens III. Shamila Dilhani Pereira. Receiving the degree of Master of Business Administration in General Business, Thais Elstrand. Jeff Barrington. Ian Berry. Mandy Blevins. Shannon Lee Body. Krill Bodeker. Stephen Broderson. Shane Bryant. Beth Buckner. Lisa Clark. Stephen Cross. Joshua Seipert. Stephanie De Leon. Michael Diaz. Alyssa Downing. Connor DeBose, Rafael Dutra Borges, Helmut Eishun, Rachel Fernandez, Arturo Garcia, Timothy Wayne Gassaway II, Tyler Colin Gillespie, Greg Gorman, Matthew Gunther, Scott Gunther, Tyler Hart, Cesar Armando Hernandez, Laura Honnell, Andrew Jeffries, Tanner Jarrett, Kristen Brooke Klein, Kevin Kessler, Blake Kolb, Laura Lindau, Andrea Lopez, Ethan Mathias, Grant McMillan, Michael Miller, Usman Ushubege Mohammed, Rajesh Nambir, Didi Naduka, Michael Gage Nelson, Kim Long Nguyen, Lainey Trang Nguyen, Bianca Nunez, Gabby Hayes Upasanju, Richard Rodriguez, Mazin Zabani, Matthew Saldana, Madison Seymour, Lanita Sharp, Gary Kip Smith, Lance Suvans, Denise Turingo, Phil Tarino, Camila Tovias, Sorlene Trevino, Ashton Urea, Binu Veleyudna, Maggie Walker, David Wilson, Jason Yokum, receiving the degree of Master of Science in Business Administration, Abu Nasser Fayed Ahmed, Ryan Gregory, Nathan Hamblin, Matthew Kempf, John Lowe, Daria White, receiving the degree of Master of Science in Business Administration and Master of Business Administration in General Business, Casey Jacqueline Baker, Brooke Brewington, receiving the degree of Master of Science in Accounting, Catherine Agamela, Ruben Baldovinas. Alan Del Rivero. Kayla Hamill. Theodore Howell. Yuande Ladega. Natalie Landry. Kayla Maxey. Robert Keegan Melvin. John Nyberg. Chelsea Rogers. Jameson Alicio Soseda. Andrew Storm. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Counselor Education, Michelle Bird. Margarita Gamboa. Nehemiah Gutierrez. Sally Jo Jackson. Marley Morris. Diana Payan. Larayon Witherspoon. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction, Abtehal Alushem. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Educational Leadership, Jessica Haley Kern. Lindsay Toms Lucas. Adriana Lujan. Lindsay Marie Pinkerton. Marina Rodriguez Lopez. Frank Shepard. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Educational Psychology, Rosario Moreno. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Higher Education, Aaron Chavaria. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Instructional Technology, Megan Gallenstein. Jessica Guerra. Ashley Prothro. Receiving the degree of Master of Education in Special Education, James Baker. Jordan Bragg. Kit Impson. Gloria Garza. Veronica Garza. Christina Geigen-Miller. Kelly McCabe-Geisy. Alicia Yeti Gomez. Tanya Grohl. Dora Hernandez-Pagel. Caroline Herrera. Evan Morgan Hoisington. Brandy Nalick. Rachel Stewart Nielsen. Jennifer Resnick. Doris Senatori. Allison Sheets. Cassidy Sherwood. Vanessa Solis. Heidi Tennyson. Receiving the degree of Master of Engineering, Shivam Sosidia. Receiving the degree of Master of Environmental Engineering, Garrett Bland. Anastasia Fox. Bethany Showman. Paul Swope. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Computer Science, Mohammed Rayhan Mujumdar. Walter Gutierrez Rodriguez. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Chemical Engineering, Razane Nugani. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Civil Engineering, Marita Moya. Joseph Waugh. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, Arita Basireddy. Agili Boker. Arshini Doda. Benedict Acer. Shannon Feathers III. Jonathan Key. Douglas Nichols. Bhargav Teja Nakala. Nimat Shamim. Monet Shushan. Megana Totapali. Shais Ravya Vodari. Jitu Joy. Abhisheka Kundu. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, April Logan. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Petroleum Engineering, Abdul Rahman Abud El Daha. Yusuf Awaziri. Ibrahim Al-Talib. Mahata El-Torki. Mohamed Etewish. Rayan Khalil. Wahid Salahi. Diane Lee. Hussein Radi Soyalai. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Software Engineering, Siva Kiran Bamedameiri. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Systems and Engineering Management, Eric Bediako. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies, Victoria Alvarez. Darina Brakim. Aaron McKenzie. Daniel Mendoza. Kiana Wright. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Museum Science, Morgan Keller. Rebecca Knight. Charlotte Lee Stockton. Receiving a degree of Master of Science in Biotechnology, Nitanyaji Kimarapati Radnalige. Shashika Jaratne. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Environmental Toxicology, Neha Sawant. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies, David Brenner. Jeremy Cortez. Rebecca Gerhardt. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Environmental Design, Abdihe Al-Sadun. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Hospitality and Retail Management, Magbul Altubeti. Victoria Elam. Mindy Wilson. Rachel Young. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Human Development and Family Studies, Taylor Suzanne Flowers. Melissa Gray. Duru Chinagarom. Receiving the degree of Master of Science in Nutritional Sciences, Reagan Anthony. Brianna Noel Bush. Elizabeth Castelli. Brian DiCanio. Leah Fleming. Vanessa Garcia. Ashley Knuff. Emily Lipinski. Kaylee McNeil. Bongti Nguyen. Jordan Robinson. Connolly Rushing. Ashley Butchie Wilmuth. Jason Cantu. Christopher Chapa. Xu Jun Chen. Shunrei Ma. Daniel Rodriguez. Nicole Smith. Heather Sweat. Joseph Vellum. Keena Walker. Jennifer Wilson. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Communication Studies, Kaylee Shannon. Bernice Urista. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Mass Communications, Holly Bearden. Caitlin Beckert. Mary Cran. Mallory Cross. Austin Davidson. Dylan Eccles. Christina Harper. Georgia Ann Kabusta. Natalie Kendrick. Nicole Moulter. Reagan Moore. Caitlin Newman. Ebony Sells. Kaylee Sims. Justin Smith. Skylar Starbuck. Noel Andrea Vela. Abigail Werner. Lauren West. Gerald White II. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Strategic Communication and Innovation, Emily Keller. Madison Tatum. Claudia Tristan. Receiving the degree of Master of Arts in Education, Shelby Reichenau. Daniel Rodriguez. Receiving a degree of Master of Arts in Arts History, Shauna Garland. Spencer Mitchell. Receiving the degree of Master of Fine Arts in Theater Arts, Travis Clark. Receiving the degree Master of Music, Samuel Bigot. Hannah McGilvray. Brooke Trapp. Nala Tatish. Sweta Puvada.
Please join me in another round of applause for our graduates. You may have noticed some of our graduates and faculty are wearing camouflage stoles. The individuals wearing these stoles have served in active duty in our armed forces. With the graduates, faculty, and members of our audience who have served in the military, please rise so we may recognize your service to our country and show our gratitude for your sacrifice. As we come to the concluding moments of this commencement ceremony, I appreciate the opportunity to convey to each of our December 2016 graduates my congratulations on a job well done. Attaining a graduate degree is a significant accomplishment. It speaks to your high level of personal motivation, natural curiosity, and love of intellectual pursuit. Let me assure you that the entire Texas Tech University community is proud of your achievements, as are your parents, family, loved ones, and friends who are sharing this day with you. Graduates, I'd like to ask you to join me in thanking those who are here today who, through their love and support, have helped to make this graduation possible. What you have obtained from your years at Texas Tech is precious and important. You've made lifelong friends, and you've learned from some of the best scholars and teachers in the world, and from other students as well. Your graduate studies have provided the opportunity to develop a special relationship with a mentor as you acquire the prevailing wisdom of your field. The faculty have confronted you with new ideas and perspectives and shared their passion for learning and discovery. Many have become your friends and will be lifelong partners in your success. I would ask all members of the faculty to please stand as we recognize your contributions. I should also acknowledge the important contributions of staff who have supported you and the faculty. To Chancellor Duncan and each member of the Texas Tech Board of Regents, thank you for your vision and your guidance. Graduates, I'm sure this is a moment of mixed emotions. You have pride in your accomplishments, but maybe questions about your future course. There is appreciation and joy for the friends you've made and sadness in leaving them. It is natural to think of this occasion as an ending, but this commencement marks a beginning. Your Texas Tech education experience gives you the tools, skills, and support system to move forward with a sense of purpose and direction and the expectation of personal fulfillment. But I hope you've learned that a full life means a commitment of service to others, to family, community, and the larger society. Because you are Red Raiders, there is an expectation that you will change the world for the better. That is what Texas Tech is about, and we know you will add to that legacy. As you begin the next stage of your life, I hope you will nurture and maintain the friendships that will be a lifelong connection to Texas Tech. Texas Tech will always be your home. Return to campus when you can, speak well of your alma mater, and tell the world with pride that you are a Red Raider. To the class of December 2016, I extend my heartfelt congratulations and best wishes for success. Go Tech! And now please join me in the singing of the Matador song, led by Miss Michaela Harden. The words are located on the back cover of your program on the ribbon screen around the arena.
Fight, matadors for Tech. Songs of love we'll sing to thee. Bear our banners far and wide, ever to be our pride. Fearless champions ever be. Stand on heights of victory. Strive for honor evermore. Long live the Matador.
Will parents and guests of the graduates please be seated for the recessional? Graduates will meet in the Citibank room on the second floor of the arena. Thank you all for your attendance and participation in the December 2016 Texas Tech University Graduate School Commencement.